was thinking about you, but I chose to write to God instead. Then on the page of broke bread, sometimes my heart is letting memories I thought I let forget. Overestimated power of regret, I guess. I planted seeds of water in the darkness. I let a tree blossom in the bottom recesses, and yet I often wonder how I got into this mess. Instead of one love, it's two loves, conflict, interest, the parties catch eyes. Cast life fast, take your poison, like a blood anointing over sin's past. It can happen when yesterday collides with the present, like scratch that I'm not past that. I'm confessing I can pass that class. I'd rather not have you the lesson. I would take that punishment with losing my blessings, going crazy over something maybe not me in the essence what it seems to be. It seems to be polyamory beckons, and I get it. I get why you can love her and me. Love never claimed exclusivity, it is free. And needed clarity, I wrote this for God to see. But he knew I was gonna do what I did before me, and I don't regret a thing. Perfect symmetry, felt like the way the king intended us to be. So there's no apologies, no rewinding. I would do it all again to show him what love means. Love means.
All right, so welcome to What Words Are Worth. Phenomenal friend, phenomenal artist, lyricist, Eternia.
What up?
Yo.
You see your face again. Last time it was our podcast.
Yeah. A while ago, right? A while ago. So yeah, I wanted to do this show because I tell people all the time I got a lot of dope friends, and you know, the reason why I'm dope is because I've been around dope people and we all kind of sharpen each other. You know what I'm saying? So it's been real dope knowing you, and I wanted people that are fans of you to actually like understand how you come up with dope rhymes, because I don't be knowing.
I always wanted to know that about you, because I remember the first time I saw you freestyle, and I view you as a friend but also a mentor. So it's an honor that you were asking that of me when I would interview you the same way.
Yeah, we done been around so many ciphers and venues and countries and all of that. So you know, there's a lot of people that hear you and they're like, yo, she's ill, but they never get to understand the time it takes to put into it. So I wanted to make sure that I could shine some light on that so people can understand how I became me. So I'm gonna go with the first question that I have is really like, so where's the name come from? You know, that's the let's get to that.
The true story is not as glamorous as what I tell journalists sometimes.
Okay.
The true story is I'm a nerd. I was on Microsoft Internet Relay Chat in '95.
Okay.
And those of you that know, and many of you don't, but look it up. And it was a place for culture, and it was a place for community. And my first email address was eternia@hotmail.com in '95, like way before Yahoo and AOL and Gmail and all that. And my brother sat beside me and said, "Oh, what do you want your email address to be?" And I was just like, if you're an 80s baby, and if you're not, look it up. But you know, Eternia was the center of the universe.
Yeah.
So I was a teenager and I was like, the center of the universe, obviously. So it became my email address, but not my MC name. And then I ended up rolling with Demigods in Connecticut in the 90s, you know, Apathy and all them. And they gave me the name Mothership because they were all on the alien tip, you know, alienation and all that. So I was Mothership. And when I would meet people, they'd be like, yo, like, when I picture Mothership, I just picture this really huge person landing on the planes. Like,
I never knew that. I never heard Mothership.
When I met you, I was Mothership in '97. Wow. So, but then when people would ask for my contact, I'd be like, "Oh, Eternia@Hotmail." Like even while I was Mothership, I'd be like, "Eternia@Hotmail," and everybody would be like, "Yo, dope name. You should just roll with Eternia." So I think probably around shortly after I met you, like maybe '98, when I transitioned out of Alien Nation and Demigods and all that, I transitioned into Eternia.
Yeah, the more that I watch a lot of like toy collectible 80s, 90s, and every time I see something with Eternia and all of that, I think of that, and I'm like, you know, the connection of it. I'm like, I question, do I know if that is the connection of it? So I'm glad that you could come on here and like put it to bed as far as that. You know what I'm saying? Because I
was like, all right, so it represents eternal, everlasting, the way I want like my spirit to be, my rhymes to be, my music to be. But that wasn't the beginning of it. The beginning was a Hotmail email address.
So speaking of the beginning, what were some of your Canadian influences then?
Wow, that's easy. So when I was a kid, it was Maestro Fresh West.
Yes.
It was Mitchie Me. I really loved Kish. You can look up Kish. He has I Around the World in 80 Days. Anyways, Kish was dope. Look him up.
Okay.
Yeah, and then of course Dream Warriors was in there. And then as things progressed, Tara Chase and The Circle and Socrates. Like when I was a teenager, they were the ones that were being rinsed on our Canadian video channel, Much Music. So definitely them. And Cardi and all that, Cardinal. But yeah, so I grew up listening to a lot of Canadian acts, and now being able to share stages with them and being able to call some of them friends and peers has been kind of a trip, you know?
Yeah, it was cool because listening to Stretch Armstrong and Bobito, that's when I kind of started hearing like, a lot of Canadian artists. Like they would get, underground stuff from Canada. And then I wouldn't really have known that a lot of artists that was from Canada were getting played here in the States until it was cool because a lot of y'all like would come down from from Canada and drive down and then be at the open mics with us. And then we would meet in person.
Yeah.
And then that's how I would find out like if someone was from Canada. Because we, the trek that y'all would make to the explain what was that was like for you to make this trek to be at the open mics and all of that when you started coming to the States.
I probably did everything: car, plane, train. Not really planes too often back in the day in the 90s, but train a lot. There was this train from Toronto to New York that was 12 hours. And I had it down to a science because I did it so much. So I jump on the train in the morning. It was only one a day that left. It was a via Amtrak train. And I jump on in the morning, but I make sure I wouldn't sleep all night. So I jump on in the morning, sleep for 8 hours of the 12-hour train ride, okay? Then wake up, 4 hours outside of New York City. I did this all the time. And then I'd just be like doing my makeup. I mean, this is one thing that we have to talk about as female versus male MCs. Like y'all could just roll out. We can't just roll out, right? So I'm doing my makeup, I'm getting ready. I hop off the train. At this point, they still had lockers sometimes at the at Penn Station. So I used to maybe like leave my stuff there and roll straight to a jam. Like whatever it was, I'd go straight off the train because it was at that point, like if we left at whatever time in the morning, like it's at least 9 o'clock at night, 8, 9, 10. So I just leave, lock my luggage up and then go straight to a jam straight off the train. Which was great. The momentum felt good. And seeing people and meeting people for the first time, like I've talked to you about this so many times, but going to New Eureka and ciphering outside with you guys is like life-changing. I was really honored, and I didn't realize like you were in the thick of it and you lived there. But I was really honored to be a part, to witness, and to also play a part, but mostly to witness just what New York City indie hip hop scene was in like more, for me, it was like 97, 98, 99. And I know that I was like more of, an outsider, I guess, at the time, but it didn't feel like that. Like anytime I rolled through, it was like family.
Yeah.
It really, and you'd see the same faces everywhere. And it didn't matter how, my experience was, it didn't matter how established someone was or whether they were on TV or not, or whether they had put out like major label records or not. If they were at those indie venues, they were just like par to par and equal with you, eye to eye. And it was, is still just, you realize in hindsight how special and how rare that is. My husband, Mr. Liff, always says, like there was the people that founded hip hop and then the next generation was us. And he's like, and so many people will never be able to experience what we experience as like the builders and the people that just came after the originators, And I've never thought about it like that, but I'm like, I was actually really lucky and blessed to witness New York City in that time. And
what made you travel from there? Like, how'd you find out about the open mics and everything in New York? Like the places where to go?
That's a very good question. I think when you're really hungry for something, you're just finding, so in Toronto and in Canada in general, I feel like it was like this secret passcode type, like most people weren't into independent hip hop and we didn't have the shows like you guys had and we didn't have the infrastructure like the States had. And even then it was still being built in the United States. But in Canada, it was like, if you found somebody that really knew, it was like, how do you know? Because you had to really hunt for it. Like for me, I would find out about artists in 93. I would find out about artists in magazines before I ever heard them because they weren't being played or I wasn't tuning into or whatever. They weren't really being played a lot in Canada. And so I'd read about them, and then I'd like order their CD in Columbia House in '93 without knowing what they sounded like. Like we're talking like Tribe Called Quest, Nas, like you know, I'm just ordering these cats and just being like, you know, J. Rue, you know what I mean? Like even Latifah, like whatever. I just read about them, and then I'd be like, all right, let's like order these CDs. So I think for us, it was just like anywhere where the culture was is where we wanted to be. And then of course my connection, I lived in Connecticut as a teenager, and then was commuting to New York City a lot with the Demigods crew. So that's how it all started.
And I remember like when I started going to Canada, like they had a lot of places that we would go. I would say like college radios or regular radio station, underground radio station. It had pretty much some of the same infrastructure we had there to go there and freestyle and everything like that. And then, you know, we'll meet like Cardinal, all of these people there, and the younger versions of everybody will be at these stations and rhyming and things like that. So and then being on like Young Street, I remember going to there was a place that we performed together. It was like like a lounge bar upstairs.
Yeah, that was really random. I don't even know why we were there. I remember being there with you though.
Yeah, there was a show, and I believe you rocked, and then I rocked, but it was like upstairs. I forgot the name.
I know exactly what you're talking about now. It was Spadina and Richmond, I think it was, and that place is gone. And we were at a music festival. I think that was North by Northeast or something like that.
Yeah, and it was like right across the street from the record store.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So
or no, Riley's. If it was across the street from the record store, that was Riley's on Young Street, maybe.
Riley's.
Yeah, Riley's. But we performed before that at this other place that I'm talking about too.
Okay, is Riley still there?
I don't think so. That was above the Pizza. I remember that. They used to have a sold out every Wednesday night. Dope. Like that's the thing too, is you find a spot, you find the right DJs, and I'm spoiled. Like I could go on about Toronto DJs, Canadian DJs in general, but Toronto DJs, like no matter where else I go in the world, I'll be like, yo, you didn't mix that record right. Like I'll be like, you didn't drop the right track after that last track. Like I am so spoiled by Toronto DJs because they are like some of the best in the world, I think.
Yeah, it was dope. It felt, I think it felt the same way, like how you would come to the States when we went to Canada. It felt the same. It felt like we were at home up there. And then, like you said, Riley's performing there. It was dope. So then after going to all these like kind of like boot camps, mini boot camps of rhyming here, rhyming there, rhyming outside, proving yourself, your writing style, like what in the midst of that, how did you develop that and say, I found who I am?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's interesting you use the word boot camp because in hindsight, you're like, oh, snap, like all of this was training. But at the time, it didn't feel like training. It just felt like a way of life.
Yep.
And it just felt like something you had to do, like eating and sleeping and breathing, you know? But now I'm like, yeah, like I was really hyper-focused. And I think all of us were that really honed our craft. So for me, I was writing my whole life as a kid. Reading and writing was kind of like what I was known for. And then once I was like in grade 5, I started spitting raps. And I started writing my raps around the same time. So we're talking like 10, 11, 12. They were really, I always say they were really corny, like, but it was what I was hearing at the time and what I knew. Like I'm a kid, right? So very salt and pepper-ish. And then how did I develop? Well, the main thing that helped me develop, and I'm not recommending this to anybody, is I got kicked out of the house at 15. And then hip hop became like number one, like before anything else, including school and rolling with rap crews. And for me, a lot of the people that I rolled with, I was always in a crew at first, you know, as a teenager. As an adult, I was a solo artist, but as a teenager, I was always in a crew. And like the people that I rolled with, obviously we honed each other's skills. We were always writing. We were kind of given tests without knowing that we were given tests. It's like, all right, we're going to write about this. We're going to do a track about this. We're going to whatever. Definitely moving to Connecticut in '97 and rolling with the Demigods was a huge leap in my writing progression. And subsequently, just all the people that I heard on the street, you're talking about ciphering and for me, writing was always a solo activity. If I was in a room and everyone was writing, I always would like go to the bathroom and close the door and like write in the bathroom just because I find I'm distracted by everything around me. Then it got to the point where like writing while I was in motion. So for example, a train or the subway or walking would help the words come from me. So that came later. Like always, it's like there's been these changes and progressions. At one point, I had to write everything in like a notebook. And then I started writing on my phone and I noticed that I could use those tools to change the way I wrote and the way I flowed because my phone was more conversational and a little bit less critical when it came to the patterns. And if I wrote physically with a pen and paper, I could get a little bit more critical with the patterns, but sometimes it was less conversational. So
that actually goes to my next question, but you spoke about like atmosphere, so I was going to ask that, so I'm going to come back to that. But my next question was actually going to be paper, pen, computer, phone, or in your head.
Right.
So,
but I want to touch on one thing you said when you're like, how did you develop your writing? I realize now, actually, post-COVID and having kids, which has both been isolating, I always was around a ton of people, and not everybody was like that. Like my husband didn't have that experience as much when he was writing. He was more like in his room with the radio, you know what I mean? But I was always in huge, like, I mean, we're talking 10 cats, you know what I mean? Like not just 2 or 3. Like,
you think the fact that, you know, you left home so early, leaving home so early gave you a survivor mentality, which led to the aggression that sometimes you would have when you would rhyme to show like you're the best? Because when you would rhyme, it wasn't like you was coming in ciphers like at a monotone vibe. You rhyme, you got energy, you on stage like, I'm here to put it, I'm putting all the fires out before me and after me, it's over.
A lot of people would view me as like a battle MC simply because of how like the way I spit. Not necessarily what I was saying sometimes, but the way I spit, people viewed me as a battle MC. And I really didn't view myself as a battle MC at all. For me, it was just, this is how you not only stand out and get noticed, but survive. Exactly what you said. It's like, I didn't want to be that girl that in a cypher was like, you know, like the vibe just went down. And that the same thing can happen with dudes too, but specifically coming up in the 90s, the era that we came up in, like people weren't really checking for girls in cypher. Some people were kind of.
I had a Pawnee on here yesterday talking to her about that era, and that's some of the same sentiments that you're sharing. She had the same sentiment about like how to have to stand out as a female back then, and getting on is different. It was just, you know, male dominated. So tell us what it's like with the paper. I see you had your notebook there. So what is it? Paper, pen, computer? Where we're at with it now?
Mostly still paper and pen. I'll use my phone when I just don't have my paper and pen readily available, because I'm not just going to write on any piece of paper like some people do. I have to write in my rhyme book. Yeah. And I don't have multiple rhyme books. I have one. And when it's full, it's also my journal, actually. So it's not just my rhyme book. Like I'll write to God in this book. I'll journal my thoughts. You know, if I'm angry, I'll vent in this book. And then I also write my rhymes in this book. So it's not just a rhyme book. And when they're full, then I move on to the next one. So I always have just one book. So if I don't have it with me handy, then I'll definitely use my phone.
And what?
And I always have blue ink. I have this thing. I can't be like, there's different types of pens. It has to be like a regular, like medium point. Like it can't be like a roller ball. Like what do you call those? Like other, you know, the fancy pens can't be that. It has to be like,
and the ink that kind of could drip and make the paper messy. It gotta be something.
Yeah, or the ones that smudge. Yeah, all that. Like you close it and it's all smudged when you open it. No, it has to be. Yeah.
So then, what do you like, writing at home or going to the studio writing? What's that like now?
Back in the day when things changed, they fluctuate. So when I was younger, it was always at the studio. But then I really got obsessed with being prepared because I always paid for studio time, and shit was real back in the day, especially if you were recording on reels. It was really real. So I never wanted to show up unprepared. So I always had to have verses written before I showed up, and preferably memorized. So at home but I like the vibe and energy of writing around other people too, because that's one thing I realized my entire musical journey has been in community more than isolated. So but if I'm alone, I want to be moving. So I might go out for a walk, or I might ride. Public transit is a big one for me, you know, coming to and from places. I think my mind is the most expressive, creative, and it works better when I'm in movement. So the journey between point A and point B is like my magic, really. I don't mind somewhere. That's magic.
You used to sleep doing the train rides to come to New York, and then were you inspired on your way back to like write on the train rides going back to Canada?
I mean, I think it's interesting. Unlike a lot of creatives I know, I love deadlines, and I love an external deadline. So I think I would be writing if somebody gave me beats, which would happen a lot when I went to New York. But if I had a project, if I had somebody like let's say, just as an example, yourself or someone else was like, yo, jump on this track, that's what I'm writing for. And gratefully, since I've been a young teenager, I've always had people be like, yo, I want you on this joint. So, which has also been hard when, you know, things change and people aren't hitting you up as much. And then you're like, you don't just write to write. Like I've always written for an album, for a purpose, for a project. I've always been externally motivated when it comes to just the deadlines and getting it done. Yeah.
So you don't have like a whole bunch of rhymes laying around and verses?
Nope.
You used to,
even when I
used to.
record, yeah, maybe as a teenager, but even as an adult, even once I hit 20, I'll be very rarely would I have a scrap verse. Very rarely. Even when I record my own albums, there's not much on the cutting room floor at all. There might be like one song or one verse, but everything makes the cut, and which is kind of crazy to say because maybe I haven't been picky enough with my stuff. But no, I write for purposes and for deadlines and for people. Yeah, and I wish it was like that. It's kind of like weird to admit that. I wish it wasn't like that, but that's yeah. I think I'm motivated by community and connection. And so it's not about, oh, I need someone else to tell me what to do. It's more about I'm socially motivated. Like I'm always about this more than like just inside of me. So yeah.
Right. And then how long does it take you to write a verse or a song?
It's changed a lot over the years. I don't know how long it was back in the day, but now it's pretty a song takes, okay, so say someone asked me to do a feature verse. Those are my favorite. The reason why they're my favorite is there's something freeing about them. I don't put a lot of pressure on myself and I have a lot of fun. Those, I don't want to say that they don't take long, but they don't take long, but not because I don't care, but because it's more freeing for me. It's fun.
Okay.
I don't know. What's not, I feel bad admitting it. It's like,
Nah,
it's never, usually as
like,
long as, like, it could be like 30 minutes, you know? 30 minutes is probably the shortest it'll take me to write a verse, but it could be longer. And sometimes I'll go back to it. Sometimes I'll usually write most of the verse in one sitting, but sometimes what I often do is I'll leave like the last 2 or 4 bars. So like I'll write almost all of it.
What about a song? What's the length of writing a song?
I'm doing and 30 minutes is the shortest. So I will go longer than that. A song, if it's obviously it's for me, usually if it's a song, because it's like a solo joint, that's more pressure. I actually find that to be a little bit more real. That's when it gets real. And that's when I'm not writing a full song in one sitting ever. The most I'll write in one sitting if I'm inspired is maybe a verse and a half, like not even 2. Like I'll do it like in parts like that. And then the next day or another day I'll come back to it and revisit. I mean, there's been certain times where I'm more inspired, like after a breakup, you know how it is. But in general, it's like, all right, let me write this one verse and I'll come back and write the next verse another day. Then I'll come right back and write another verse another day. So songs and when it's for my records, it's not that I care more. Well, it's just I feel more pressure when it's my own solo stuff. When I work with other people, it's actually really freeing, which is why I'm hoping that me and Liff are going to do an album together. Because I've never had a group project in my life. I've always been solo. Like I can't think of a time where I recorded with other people for a group project, like an actual album.
Yeah, you got it. Well, how about when you pick like one producer? Remember, you got to join with one producer.
Yeah.
So
but I'm still doing all the lyrics. It's all me, you know.
Oh yeah. Oh, so you mean just with the on the lyrical part?
I mean on the lyrical part too. Yeah, I mean lyrically,
yeah.
like when I say writing a song, it's like I'm responsible for all the words, you know.
Yeah, it's dope though when you do it because of course you got to write one verse, but it also allows you to kind of like consolidate all your ideas into making sure this one verse is gonna be so like when we do a song by yourself, you got 3 chances.
Yeah.
2 to 3 chances, right? Because you could be like, all right, this idea, first verse, this idea, second verse, this idea.
Yep. And your progression, you can like kind of tell a story, you can take it different places.
Yeah, but when you're with somebody, you go, this is the best idea out of those 2 verses.
Yeah. And I think I do well into that sort of, I really do well into that. I'm looking forward to that experience because I've never had it in all of my years, many years. I've been rapping for so many years. It's kind of like hard to quantify. Hold on.
So what is that pressure like?
30 years. 30 years. More than 30 years I've been writing verses. More than 30 years. That's insane.
So what's the pressure like as far as just rhyming from a female perspective, knowing you're gonna rhyme with a guy on a track? Like, are you trying to prove something? Is that always been the case? Even though back in
the day, maybe now it's just like I have a lot of confidence in that area. I'm just like, yeah, there's probably certain people that might make me a little nervous. Like I know you're always gonna come with it. And there's certain people that it's like, yo, I'd like to hear them first. Like recently, but I still feel like I can hang though. I'm like, let me find out what they did, and not because I want to outdo them as much as I want to be inspired by them. So recently I got on this track with Chino. It wasn't his track, it was someone else's track, but he was on it too. And that was like fun for me because I was like, oh, now I really need to like think about what I'm doing here. And it was really fun.
Yeah, I've learned that I think I've gotten to a point, like I think I used to really be like that, and I'm still like that with certain songs, but then I'm like, I'm just gonna do what I do, and then when they get the version, I'll hear it back. Because you just sometimes you be featuring on stuff, and sometimes that person doesn't put their verse down, this and that. Then I was just like, well, I'm just gonna do what I think it sounds like, and if that verse sounds better or whatever, it's just gonna be what it's gonna be.
And better is relative. It's just I do love, like I am a perfectionist when it comes to my own stuff, which is probably why it's really freeing when I do other people's stuff. And so like I think that when people write together, when they're friends, when they know each other, when they can hang outside of the studio, it translates in their music. I think I know, and I believe in like a spiritual realm too. So it's like, yeah, you and me can both write dope verses all day on people's projects, but it's not going to feel the same as people that either wrote together or at least bounced ideas, what I'm saying? Where there's some sort of,
So what's the atmosphere when you're writing now? Are you doing daytime, nighttime? You wake up and write, or like, so I know being a parent and things of that nature, work, all these things, what's the time?
Changed so much, man. Sometimes I get angry that it can't be like the way it was. So at one point in my life, I was definitely a night owl. Probably around the time that I met you and after, in university for sure, I was writing at nighttime. I remember that, like way after midnight. And now it's like, my brain is sharp in the morning. And then as the day goes by with the children, I'm full-time at home with 2 kids under 5. So as the day goes by, I'm like less and less and less sharp. And I'm more just becoming like an empty shell of myself. So I'm not saying I'm writing in the morning because I actually don't have time. I'll be real with you. Right now, I'm simply writing when given a kid-free moment, whenever that is. But typically that is during my younger son's nap time because I give my older son a show, and that is it. Like those 2 hours in the day, that's it for everything and anything I need to get done, including writing a verse. And so it's like interesting when you have constraints that you never would have before, creative constraints. Sometimes they might make you sharper and better. And the other day, this was just like a week or two ago, I had 2 collab verses to bang out, and my sister was over braiding my older son's hair, and my younger son was napping, and I banged out 2 verses in 2 hours, like just while he was napping. Actually, it took me less time. It took me 1 hour because I did other stuff first. So, you just get down to it,
But I think it's dope though that, like you said, like having these situations put you in other situations, because you never know what you're going to get hired for. Because nowadays, we get hired to do other things that make our songs. You might have to write a song for a commercial. You might have to write a song for somebody. All these different opportunities that we get now, there's no way that you really can just say, I'm going to stick to my time of writing it.
There was this person that I knew that was thrown into an official boot camp, I think by some like label reps or something. They were trying to, this is way back. This is when I was young. And I remember her telling me that they dropped her off at a school playground, like during recess or something, like all the kids. And they said, write a song during like lunch hour, like in an hour, write a song during like school kids recess. And I was just like, when she told me that shit, I was like, fuck no. Like, I was like, never. But it's a good example.
You see in it,
what you're going to get,
Yeah, that's the type of stuff you see in a reality TV show nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. It wasn't conducive to being your best creatively, but I'll find a corner. I'll find, if given the opportunity, it doesn't take me long.
So then, are you like writing to the beat or using rhymes you have prepared? What?
Oh, always writing to the beat. And the reason why I had to stop and pause is because there's been, I don't even know if I want to admit this. I can't admit this. There's been a few times where I get hired to do something and I don't like the beat, but I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I don't always do it, but every once in a while.
We know. I know what you're talking about.
I'll find another beat with a similar tempo right to that joint, and then boom, boom, slap it on. But
see, Eternia, that's why I wanted to do the show, for stuff like that. because I've interviewed people and we all have that similar problem of maybe not liking the beat to write to, whatever the case. But I haven't heard nobody until now come with that technique. So explain that again. What do you do?
Yeah, I don't, and this is rare. Like, I mean, this is probably, I could count on two hands how many times I've done this, but if it's so painful, I can't listen to it. I can't write to it. And I'm also not going to feel inspired. And I try to not accept projects that make me feel that way. Like I am picky. Like if people would send me beats, I'll definitely get my manager to come back at them and be like, yo, send me another batch or send me whatever, even if it's like a paid thing for them or whatever. But sometimes it's like, okay, this is what we got. And I have to decide whether I'm going to take it or leave it. And in recent years, the majority of my income has come from like features and collabs and stuff. So thank God for that. So yeah, on occasion, I'll just like find another beat that obviously is similar in tempo because you don't want to get too far off the track. Write to something I love. It could even be a popular beat. It could be a Nas beat. It could be whatever, you know, it could be an old classic 93 golden era beat. Like, it doesn't matter what it is, P-Rock, whatever, Primo, you know, just find something that inspires me and makes me hype, write to it, make sure it fits, and then boom, just slap it on there.
That's dope because I think people do that. Like some people do it, but not everybody does it. So hearing you say that, I'm sure a lot of people like, word, because I do that too. I might have a beat, but then I go listen to another artist rapping and I'll be like, ooh, that got me into the zone and what I would say with that. So then what's after you finish writing?
I'm always writing to beats and I never write ahead of time before hearing a beat. And a beat is what actually dictates what I write about. So sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to write about until I hear the beat. Like, and then oftentimes there's very few occasions where I've already had an idea in my head of something I want to write about and I'm looking for a beat for that topic. Usually the beats even dictate to me like emotionally, spiritually, everything, where I'm even going to go. So it's really important for me to hear the beat.
So what's the revision process now? So, all right, you're writing in a book. So, you know, writing in a book, there's some scribbling, probably something gets crossed out. I know you said you write in the phone. What's the revision process of knowing the verse is done? How do you know when the verse is done or this needs to be fixed?
This is like a recent joint. This is a recent joint here. It's like, I'll send you the picture, but I always write usually from top to bottom. I might leave 2 bars and I might even leave those for when I go to the studio to record it. I might even leave those last 2 bars for like when I'm actually at the studio ready to record it. But I very rarely leave a verse hanging halfway through. So it's done. Like if I'm sitting down to write a verse, I'm going to finish that verse typically. And cross out and revisions happen. So I always write, the way I write is, okay, so I got 2 bars, right? So I'm spinning, the beat's playing obviously on loop and I always come back to the top. So anytime I'm writing, even if I only wrote 1 more line, I'm always coming back to the top. I wrote another line, always coming back to the top. So for me, context, big picture is everything. I don't want to get lost in something I'm doing in the middle and I might have missed a flow that I was building on from the beginning, or I might have missed a rhyme scheme I was building on from the beginning. So for me, I always spit from the top every time I'm writing a verse, which is why it's easy for me to memorize them, because by the time I'm finished writing a verse, I've gone through it so many times from the top, you know? I know a lot of people that will just write 2 bars here, 2 bars there, 2 bars here, and then like click them in together like Lego.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I think that's really cool. I know Jay-Z does. I know Rod Digger does. A number of other people do, but I don't, and some of the people I really admire do that. I don't do that. For me, it's all like a contextual thing from the beginning of the verse all the way to the end. And so I'm always kind of checking myself and going back to the beginning. And then like I have little things that I'll do to like indicate like where I would breathe or where I would stop or where I wouldn't stop. Like I'll put a little arrow if this means keep going, like on some like big pun shit, like don't stop after the bar. It's like there's a little arrow. If I do 2 lines, that means all right, you pause in here. And now you're going in again, like things like that. Because sometimes you'll write a verse and you'll have the flow in your head, but then it might be a while before you record it and you don't want to come back to the page and be like, well, what was the flow? You know, some people can record them on their phone, but I actually often don't record them on my phone. I don't do a rough track very often in my phone and my audio. I do those little indications. And then the final edit, you asked about revisions, is this doesn't actually happen often, but if I'm in the studio and something's not flowing properly, like if there's too many words or too little words, or there's something I said that I don't think is dope in the studio right then and there, I'm gonna fix those up.
Okay, so it's funny you talk about like putting notes on the paper. Superstition told me he has like something he'll write over the word like snare, so he knows he may come in on the snare, because sometimes we might write a rhyme and then we come back to visit the beat and we forgot how we jumped in.
Right, because you might not come in on the one.
Exactly. So he has a way that he'll write what instrument it is.
I don't
So
do
he
that.
knows when to jump in. So just having those notes on the paper, when you started saying that, I was like, yo, that's dope. Like y'all put these notes here. There's people that
And then
write these.
even like this one, the one that I wrote beside this, where is it? It's like the next page. Yeah, I wrote on the top. I need my glasses, but this is to remind me even about delivery. I said, spit, chill, ego, lean, more than hype. You know what I'm saying? Like, because sometimes I'm just like rah rah rah. So I'm like, yo, so chill on this one. You know what I mean?
I think another thing that I would say that I noticed that so dope about you is that when I hear you rhyme, I don't think it's going to be the same flow. You like bounce around. You'll be like rhyming the same for a few bars, and then all of a sudden just and it's like you have like a way to dance on the beat. So how conscious of you are to like switch up?
I just heard somebody, so I'm just wondering if my 2-year-old crawled out of his own crib, but we'll find out. Because he's in nap time right now, which is just like when I write my rhymes. How do I switch it up? I think every once in a while I'll keep the same flow throughout the whole verse, but rarely. You're right. And I think it's like just when sometimes I love beats that change. So if like not even drums, just even if a sample changes, that often indicates to me like I just go with the flow there and I switch it up there. Or if I'm just getting bored of what I'm doing. A lot of it is not even something I consciously think of in my head. It's just more like where my creativity goes. But I was raised on a lot of lyricists that like what we loved about them was their flows, you know, whether it's Pharoah Monch or Big Pun or, you know, even Cool G Rap or whatever. I actually wasn't raised on Cool G Rap, but I was raised on the people that were inspired by Cool G Rap. But Black Thought, you know, so for me, flows were everything, and I've had to actually work on being more chill, you know, because for the longest time it was just all flow, you know. So I've had to work on the conversational part of it, you know.
So then when you're picking the beats, how do you go about that? Are you picking beats? What kind of beat are you looking to talk to you? Or is it like, because you know, some people today now, like a lot of the younger kids will have a vibe and they stay at that same vibe, might be the entire project.
Yeah.
What are you looking for when you pick these beats?
You know, I've often second guessed and doubted myself. I do think I know good beats. And when I say good beats, I don't mean just for me. I mean, like in general, I think people tend to be like, yo, that's a really like, I know beats that will make people's head nods. And the reason why I know that is because I was raised, once again, in this community I'm telling you about. So for me, it was all about jams, parties, like DJs. So I learned what makes people go crazy, and that's helped me with my own beat selection, because I wasn't just in my room or listening to the radio. I was like out in spots and you could see people licking up shots and like what people respond to. That being said, I think traditionally I liked fuller beats, like richer beats with more instrumentation or orchestration. And I loved like the double and triple kicks. You know, I called them the victory beats, like the ones that sound like Rocky running up the steps. I really loved the running bass. You know, I really loved the running bass lines. I really loved things that preferably switched up as opposed to like just a loop. But I've realized that what I gravitate to, so busier beats that do all that stuff, don't necessarily complement what I do, because I'm also busy and I have a certain range and tone in my voice. And you don't want something that's also like even on an EQ level cutting into your range, because the beat is also competing with you with like the vocal sample or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've had to learn that sometimes the beats that I wouldn't normally rock on, like, so a real open loop, like, you know, drummer boy open loop, can sometimes make me sound way better than what I would have gravitated to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, watching, like, if you're out there, anybody, like, just if you have a chance, go see Eternia show, because the energy, what you describing, the type of beats is the same, that energy, like, and then you said the nodding beat, when you're on stage, you're nodding, you riding the track like that.
You want to break your neck, you know?
Yeah, so the energy of her show is just like infectious, that you want to definitely, like, you want to start nodding. You want to be like, if you haven't heard that song from her, you'd be like, what song is this? She performed this so great. Like, so,
I want it to be undeniable. I want people, I'm used to performing for people that don't want to like me. So I really have to sell them, you know? So I'm there to like be like, yo, I'm gonna make you.
Yeah, as underground independent artists like us, we get put into a lot of moments like that, when it's like, you know, a new small city. a city that we, you know, some people know of us, they're not sure of us, and then, you know, you got to try to convince people all the time. So when you're writing these rhymes, what I notice about you too is that you're good at putting like a good story in there that's based on not only your life, but can relate to others. And then you have like positive notes in there. It's like you have a good mixture of like, you're able to tell tales when you're writing. So what makes you consciously do that?
I think that I've always used writing in general, even before I was writing raps, to process stuff. So I have to be careful that all my stories aren't navel gazing. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not all like about me.
Yeah.
But I'm also a student of, I'm a student of people. I'm a sociology minor, but in my mind, it's like, that's the thing that I love the most, more than my major was journalism in university. So journalism and sociology, which is basically emceeing, if you think about it, right? So I'm a student of what I observe, and I like to write about what I observe. And I think Nas is really good at that, exceptionally good at that. And I'd like to think that like it's a part of what inspires me too. So the storytelling that you're talking about really involves me having to be involved deeply in many different types of people's lives, and that's what helps with those with the relatability that you're talking about.
Yeah, because you've had this journey of, you know, being in growing up Canada, coming to the States, hanging out with different groups of rappers, artists, and seeing their what they do, and then you showcasing your skills, and then you get inspired by them, they get inspired by you. So you've had a journey of being able to craft things. So which is why I love hearing what you just said with the sociology and journalism. See, now I'm able to start putting this puzzle together. I'm getting that piece like, oh, okay, now I know why she rap like that.
Yeah,
because
I never do. I don't want to be lying when I say this, but from my recollection, I've never done first person and it be imaginative, meaning not true. So when I talk first person, it's always true, but I do like to touch on other people's lives too.
So when you're recording, what's the studio setup that you have?
We are in the lab. In the lab, in the lab. What you know about this lab? Another day at the office. Actually, I don't get many days at the office. I'm acting like I do. This is very rare. I'm gonna keep it real. Some of y'all might know this joint. I don't even have one of these plaques myself. I gotta ask Merciless to hook me up. So I love I want to say it's a Rode MT1 way back. It's an old joint. I know that they released a new version that was like an NT1. I don't know if, oh my gosh, the geeks are going to get mad at me because I'm going to get this wrong, but I don't know if it was an NT1A or whatever. But the Rode,
I think it's an A. I think it's an A. Yeah.
So I went to Australia in 2003. I don't know if I saw you out there. I don't remember. I wouldn't be surprised if I did, but I was living out there in 2003 for half a year. And somebody recorded me on a Rode mic. And I was just like, ooh, I love the sound of this. And I was smart enough to ask them what their mic was. And I bought one in 2004, but I think I didn't start using it until 2005 or 6, or I don't know. It was a while until I actually set it up. I was so nervous to record at home. I was so nervous to record myself. It took me forever to do my home studio setup. But once somebody set me up, I was just like immediately, like it didn't even take, like there was no learning curve. The minute somebody just set me up at home, like all they had to do was plug in the gear and like just do my first recording, I was off to the races. But for so long, I was nervous to do that. It was like I had a security blanket of going to other places with engineers and whatever and producers. But yeah, the Rode is my joint, and my husband, Mr. Liff, he has his own setup and his own mics and his own preamps and his own everything. And when he records me on his setup, I hate it. I'm like, oh, I don't like the way I sound at all because he's got it set up for him. So I don't use a lot of I don't use a lot of other gear. It's literally just what I track in, which is actually GarageBand. I have an old MacBook that I have not updated at all because all of my gear will become completely dysfunctional once I update my MacBook. So I refuse to update it. I will buy a new MacBook, and I'm not the only one that does that. Moss had a whole
I was using a M-Box too for mad long, and then
I still have my M-Box.
See, and then my computer crashed that went along with it, and then it was like, now I gotta find this computer that go with it. So then I updated to the Scarlett, but also at that moment, the Pro Tools were free. Now you got to pay for Pro Tools.
Right.
And so I was using it like I'm not even trying to upgrade because all I'm doing is recording. So why am I going to do?
Right. Like I'm not doing instruments, I'm not making beats, and this makes my voice sound good. And that's all that matters ultimately. So I literally have an MBox, GarageBand, and a Rode NT whatever. And that is my favorite setup.
And that's all you need.
Yeah, but you know, I record other places and other studios too, and they have probably way better gear than what I'm mentioning, and they make me sound good too. You know, I like to go to studios because it's the communal vibe again. I like when I can, I like to do that.
So what are three producers you want to work with? You know, I know you've done a whole producer album before. Like, because nowadays I think it's been dope to see like majority of my albums have been done with like one producer, the past couple of them, and then the ones coming out, all one producer too. So I like that. It's less of a headache because when you do an album sometimes with so many producers, you know, they lose the file or got corrupted or everybody want to mix their own joints. And now you got to worry about the cohesiveness and stuff like that. So any like producers you found on Instagram or people that you've always just wanted to work with?
This is a tough question because I hear so many people that I like, and then it's almost like, you know how there's so much music out these days, you hear something, you're like, this is incredible, and then you actually forget. But I like to keep things close to home now because for me, there's definitely people in the past that are like, yo, like High Tech. I just would love to work with High Tech, or, you know, obviously everybody wants to work with Pete Rock or whatever. But I think for the sake of just how the music makes me feel, I still want to do another record with Rel. You know what I mean? Rel was my last, like he produced my whole last album. Merciless is somebody that has mixed my projects. I don't know if he's mastered my projects, but he mixed the last record. And any beat I've ever gotten from Merciless has been like huge, like epic single huge. And I'm like, how come we don't work together more? And he knows how to mix me. Like he's the only guy I don't have to explain to. You know what I mean? Like I don't have to fight. Like he knows what I want. And so I think that myself and Lift together, we'd love to do a project together with Merciless. So shout out Merciless in Toronto. And then in Europe, like Snow Goons is a production collective. I know you know Snow Goons.
I thought about that the other day. I saw a Snow Goons record with Killer Priest the other day, and then I know they've done Onyx. They've done numerous albums and collabs. I always thought about what that would be like with me and a Snow Goons project too.
Right. So Snow Goons is like probably everybody wants to work with them. And to be fair, like we've been cool forever. Their sound is not actually typically my sound. So it'd be really interesting if I did like an EP with them. And I think it would probably be like something where I'd want to do me, Lift, and them. In general, right now, I'm more interested in like the group project with Lift or with someone than I am with just me doing a solo record. And then I would love to just
I think that was dope. I think what was dope what you said is like it's not your typical sound, but I think what's dope is that you recognizing that you may pick something that they don't think you would pick, which would make, you know what I'm saying, you complement each other, the Snow Goons project, because you might be like, yeah, let me get that right there. And because sometimes people will send us, all right, here's an issue for everybody out there. When you send them beats to us, I would say, I like to speak for us, send us 5 to 6, maybe whatever, but make sure you send the stuff in there that you think we don't like.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A lot of people would like to go, they'll send us these beats and they say, I sent these for you. I thought you sound good on this. No, don't do that, y'all. Send us the stuff. Send us a couple of those, but send us maybe 5 or 10 that we don't like, because a majority of us have rhymed on beats that sound so similar, and we're trying to just find something outside the box and maybe find a new sound. So if you're a producer out there, send us a couple of joints you think we like. Send us some joints you think we don't like.
I have a lot of fun dancing on joints that aren't typically what I would pick when they're collabs, like something that's completely out of my wheelhouse. You know, like I'm rhyming like Twister or some shit. Like it's like, this is fun.
Yeah, because I think like people think because we kind of came from the era we've grown up in. I love boom bap, but I kind of like to tell people I like a little modern boom bap, like, you know, give me some awkward drums.
Yeah. You definitely need, I feel like I feel like you can do stuff with your eyes closed, so you really need a challenge.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I just wanted, I think I did the record Skin, and that's like one of my favorite records to do at shows. And it's I like just doing stuff that's different because also going forward with doing music, I've learned that it's good to do that because of where the game is going with sync licensing now. So you
Right.
don't want to just have songs in this particular sound. You want to have songs like a Lizzo record sound, and you want to do a Bruno Mars record sound. You want to
Right.
do a EDM song, and it doesn't have to make your album necessarily. Because I got a lot of songs that just are for that dynamic, and like 30 songs are just for that. You never hear them on albums. So I think
Yeah.
it's good to have these tracks to exercise these other arenas that you may collaborate with an artist for. So
Right.
producers, think about other avenues that you can venture into because making records and putting songs out is not the only thing no more.
Yeah, you're right. And I wanted to add on to the three producers thing you asked and just say that in general, I was kind of excited to go over to Europe, do a little like self-imposed artist residency, collect beats, you know what I mean? Just from like dope, like maybe up and coming cats and make something out of that too in general.
So Eternia, thank you for being on the show. It's been phenomenal for me to hear like sociology stuff, journal. See, now I can hear you and go, oh yeah, because she's sociology and journalism. So that's why this sounds, you know what I'm saying? Like I can
Thank you.
understand, I can
Yeah.
understand the process behind how you're thinking and like, okay, she didn't just write that like this. She wrote it because of this and that. And then people at home as well could get the same vibe and learn from you today. So can you share all of your social media and everything?
I mean, sure, but I just want to say it's such an honor to have this conversation with you because anytime, like, first of all, I don't know why you always say yes, but we've jumped on a number of songs together that I
Yep.
have asked you to do, and each one to me is some of my favorite music I've ever made. Each track that
Thank
we've done together, and we actually haven't been able to perform them together. So I hope we can do that one day because I feel like it's been a long time since you and I shared a mic on stage, or if ever. But there's some of my favorite songs. So if y'all don't know anything about me, just Google Eternia and Wordsworth, and you'll find some of my favorite joints. I think he's been on
you.
almost every single one of my albums.
Yeah, and
Yep.
I'm gonna have you on some more of my projects. I've been actually on this vibe of like trying to kind of like double back to make sure I rap on my projects for every friend that I came up with for the most
So,
part. So I'm gonna definitely be on something that I got coming up soon too.
that would be really cool. And in general, I want to see all the cats that are on that record because it'll be a lot of people that I'll be excited to hear. And yeah, social. So everything's just The Real Eternia, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or anything, it's all the same thing. The Real Eternia. And you know how to spell the real. It's just THE real and then ETERNIA.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the show again. And everybody out there, make sure you check the links in the description. I'm going to have links to her music down there, merch, whatever she wants y'all to go out there and support. And I'd like to ask you, what are your words worth? Peace. Sign up now at elevate.miami.edu for my course, Organized Rhyme. Looking at the word legacy, while involving some wordplay, I'll use the first syllable to build upon. We'll use the first syllable, leg. For the second syllable, we'll use an. And for the third syllable, we'll use the word knee. So now we have leg and knee. Can we use it in context with legacy? Let's just see. Wordsworth Productions with a S.com for all merch. I got 2 books available right now. Well, Words Are Worth Volume 1, and I also have a children's book called Socks. Age range from 12 to 15, so it's kind of like the middle school and high school age range, but adults can read it as well. Shout out to Wizker. If you're into skincare, the Wizker will help prevent razor bumps and make sure you got smooth skin all around. Make sure you order it on Amazon, the Wizker. Make sure you check out wordsworthproductions.com. There you can book me if you want to book me for shows, consultations, panels, and things of that nature. And also it'll give all the upcoming shows that I'll be attending or performing at or appearing at as well. Wordsworth-Productions.com. We write plays, books, movies, anything that deals with writing and creativity. Contact us.